Hello, Fermion friends. Welcome to this live stream from Civo Nacigate in London. My name is Sohan Maheshwar. I'm a dev advocate with Fermion. I have a bunch of WebAssembly experts with me, and we are going to talk to them WebAssembly. So my first guest today is Sven. Sven, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Sohan. Yeah, I'm Sven Fennick. I'm a lead developer at Liquid Reply with net buttons, and I'm a fan of WebAssembly.
Nice. So how this is going to work, folks, is you can send us any questions in the chat. We'll try and We'll try and get our experts to answer these questions for you. So we're at Civo Nacigate, and Sven, you had a talk already, or you have a talk coming up, and what's it about?
I will have a talk in a few minutes, so therefore my other competent colleagues can answer the questions. The talk is about hacking Kubernetes for fun in Wasm. Wasm is a little operator that installs a container dshim on a Kubernetes node while it's running. And we can also do this with Civo K3s Kubernetes. And Civo yesterday announced that they will support WebAssembly on Kubernetes clusters. So you can see a glimpse of the future already now in my talk.
Nice. So can you tell us a bit more about Wasm, Containerd, Kubernetes, WebAssembly, that entire space? And the only reason I asked this is I got asked so many questions about this when I was at the booth, right? Everyone wanted, hey, tell me how I can run this in a Kubernetes cluster. My company is doing Kubernetes already, but I'm super interested in WebAssembly. So tell us a bit about that entire.
That's exactly the target audience. So when you already have a Kubernetes cluster running, you can't re-implement everything and say, I'm going full in WebAssembly and building everything from scratch. You need to have a migration path towards WebAssembly. And if you can run WebAssembly workloads side by side with your existing Kubernetes workload, you have an excellent migration path towards the future.
Very cool. And Sven, you're someone who's been following the WebAssembly space for a while. What do you think the future of WebAssembly holds in the next year or two?
That's a very interesting question. And yeah, you can just guess what's the future of WebAssembly. Since the component model is finished and we will see a lot of modules, there will be huge movement. And hopefully in 1 year, you can run any programming language to implement your services and interact with other programming language, with other services. And you would ask yourself, what have I done without WebAssembly?
Nice. I certainly hope that comes true. Sven, we won't keep you for too long because we know you have a talk coming up, but thank you so much. I hope to hear a lot from you in this space very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Fermion friends, this is a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the chat. Let us know where you're watching this from. We are streaming live from Civo Nacigate in London. And our next guest is David. David, so you had like a workshop and a talk and a whole bunch of things at the conference. Tell us about all of it. Oh.
Yeah, sure. I've been busy. So I gave a talk on real-world WebAssembly, showing people how to actually build a useful spin application. Tried to make it a bit more quirky, so it's kind of had a Scottish slang to it, which I think actually confused a lot of people. But it was good fun, and there's been a lot of people tweeting and kind of sharing the questions that they've asked. My workshop was on debugging Kubernetes, which I love to kind of showcase and help people with. But I was very mean. I was a terrible person, and I broke the clusters in very serious ways. So I hope people enjoy the challenge.
So I was following David on Twitter earlier today, and you apologize for breaking that Kubernetes cluster. We got to know more about this, right? I think we all have like tales from the trenches. So give us all the gory details, David.
So there's clusters, and we ran through the first cluster together. So like, I'm okay, how do we debug, right? What's the symptoms? What's wrong? How do we reverse engineer? How do we fix it? I then set them loose on 5 clusters. And unfortunately, half the room picked cluster 3. Now, cluster 3 had it's not a serious etcd break, but anything that involves etcd or storage in general is usually pretty difficult. So, like, to get started debugging that problem, you have to configure or export like 5 environment variables just to get etcd control to speak to the API. You then have to alarms work, which have to be manually disarmed, even if you fix the problem. And then that's just the first problem in that cluster. So tweeting said, like, I'm really sorry, that was brutal. But, you know, Kubernetes is hard, right? You know, we can try and pretend it's getting easier, and it is to a certain degree, but there's a lot of things that you need. And operating Kubernetes is always a challenge because microservice architecture, Linux, there's a lot of skills involved. You have to you know, these war game situations are something that teach you through trials and tribulations.
Awesome. That's definitely a story for the ages, though, breaking Kubernetes class. Also, you did host another workshop on Spin, and you are part of a YouTube channel, or you are the creator of the YouTube channel called Raw Code Academy and a website. Tell us a bit about David. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, my channel is there to help people with cloud native architecture. You know, those are evolving, and WebAssembly is going to be a big part of that future, right? And I really think that we need to spend more time helping people adopt WebAssembly, and the developer experience that we get with building Spin applications for a microservice architecture is just unparalleled. And it's like, I want to spend as much time as I can helping people be good at that, because cloud native is hard. Serverless had a lot of promise. You know, zero infrastructure, build any application you want, and it's going to be amazing. However, containers have challenges. They have resource consumptions. In Kubernetes, we've got pods containers and sandboxes that need to be configured. And a lot of these challenges can disappear. Cold start times can disappear when people adopt and use WebAssembly. And I just think that Spin is giving people that developer experience that we need. You know, if you go back 20 years, because I'm old, well, kind of old, we just ran applications on machines and it was fine. And containers came and we could move our development environments into containers. However, containers are really difficult, especially on a Mac or Windows, where you have to then have a virtual machine that runs the containers. You can sync the file system into that. And all of these challenges can actually be solved by just saying, you know, run a spin up and you get a WebAssembly workload running on your machine. And it truly is build once, run anywhere, which is a phrase that containers and Docker have promoted for years and has never really been delivered.
Yeah, well said, David. Absolutely agree with you on that. I've really seen the space evolve over the last 15 years, 10 years, and the WebAssembly space in the last couple of years. Where do you see this evolving and moving towards in the next couple of years?
Oh, that's a tough question. I didn't come here for hard questions. Yeah, I just, you know, I'm very bullish on WebAssembly. I think the benefits that we get in the developer experience is the most important thing for developers. We like to experiment with new languages, experiment with new tools. WebAssembly gives the ability to explore new languages, compiled to a truly ubiquitous runtime and environment. And so I'm really excited just to see more and more WebAssembly. Now, is WebAssembly going to be everything? No, right? We're still going to we need Postgres, we need MongoDB, we need, you know, MariaDB, all of these databases. Is someone going to write a WebAssembly database? Maybe, right? I don't know, but it doesn't exist yet. So containers and WebAssembly side by side is where I think we need to invest in making things just great for developers and enjoyable.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much for those words, David. Last, if you want to please shout out your YouTube channel and the cool things that you're actually doing on it, here's your chance. So go for it.
Yeah, check out rawcode.academy. And if you want to find the YouTube channel, rawcode.lab. I hope the content there helps you. There's over 400 hours and like 200 videos trying to explain and help Kubernetes and cloud native. So have fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. That was very eye-opening. That was very informative. We leave you to it. Thanks again. Fermion friends, we are streaming live from Civo Nacigate. We have a bunch of great Wasm experts here. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll try and get to as many as possible once I get the YouTube app on my laptop here, or rather my tablet here working. We have Saiyam. Saiyam, welcome. Quick introduction, Saiyam.
Hey, my name is Saiyam, and I'm a field CTO at Civo, doing a bunch of things. I'm founder of Cube Simplify, again, doing a bunch of things over there. And yeah, excited about WebAssembly and the things that we at Civo also are doing in this space.
Very cool. So first of all, welcome. And Sam, also thank you, because we at Fermion, we just released a serverless AI inferencing feature where we actually partnered with Civo, the great bunch of people to really work with. And we've got a lot of good attention and questions in the last couple of days. So thank you for that. Sam, can you tell us a bit about what you do in the cloud native and the WebAssembly space?
Yeah, so basically, when I was with Matt and Radu on the Wasm Wave India tour, Radu was working on this small prototype of how to work with OpenAI on using WebAssembly, and then from there the journey started, and we talked about how we can leverage Civo for certain set of services, and then we were also working internally with GPUs that we launched. You can attach a VM, a GPU to a VM, and internally, we were definitely working with Fermion on getting things set up for the new AI-powered service. And I'm happy it has come out live. And yeah, so my overall work involves mostly in the research area, like seeing all the technologies tools out there, how they can fit well in the current ecosystem with our projects, and or with the vision that what we can do next. So all those things, plus I am also on the customer facing, because as a field CTO I have to deal with the technical onboarding of the customers. That is something I do. On the not so free time, I learn new stuff. As a cloud CNCF ambassador, I have a YouTube channel, Cube Simplify. I love to teach what I learn. So those things conclude my day with my little one that I spend time with.
That's a pretty extensive list of things. Thank you. So Sam, you have actually followed the cloud native space quite closely, right? How are you seeing WebAssembly really make a dent in the space in the last year or so?
Yeah, I think I have been last year or so is the specific year that I have been involved with, specifically with WebAssembly. And since the time Docker last year time frame announced that they are ready to support that you can use the same developer tooling to build your WebAssembly modules, and then the containerd shipped Shims. So Shims now that lets you run on the Kubernetes cluster. These two things have sparked up in the cloud native community that okay, we can use the same tooling, we can use the same capabilities, now we can run our work there. We don't need to learn everything altogether new, or we don't need to unlearn what we already have and learn something new. How this helps is, let's say you are already running bunch of applications on your Kubernetes cluster, and you also want you're limited by WebAssembly because of the compilation, near native speeds, and all the other features, and you want to try it out, but you don't want a separate environment for that. So you can use your existing cluster, and for your new set of application or a part of your application or a feature of your application, you can develop that as WebAssembly modules, run side by side your containerized workloads in the nodes that you have targeted as Wasm nodes. So that's something that is really cool. Plus, the community that is pushing the bike right now is setting up or finalizing the component model and the VAS GPU. So these two things are holding the next like big wave, because as soon as this gets published and this gets ironed out, I think there are a lot of great startups trying to develop a observability solution to WebAssembly. A lot of machine learning and AI stuff happening. Fermion has just launched. Wasm is building LLMs. So the space is evolving rapidly across areas. I like it similar to that in the WebAssembly space. We are seeing new players coming in, and they are solving new challenges, bringing out new tools, fresh innovation happening over there. So I think it has a long way to go, and I don't think it's just the hype and it'll just go away. It's going to stay. It has a purpose. It has a track record success in the browsers. So by no means we can say that it won't work out. I think it should work out pretty well in the cloud native ecosystem.
Okay, very cool. We at Fermion, we've been saying that it is the next wave of cloud computing, and you also mentioned that you've seen the space evolve. So we are asking all our guests, gaze into that crystal ball. Where do you see WebAssembly and this whole space in the next year or two?
Yeah, I think I resonate pretty well with Matt. Obviously, when he'll be here, he can talk more on it. So there are evolution curves that keep on happening. I think WebAssembly is at that particular stage where it's just about to take off. So the plane is just about to take off with a certain set of things that are being done, and then there are no limits. You will see many more startups coming in this space, adoption coming in this space, and a lot more things happening education wise. So there was a problem. Like last year I heard about we like people don't know about WebAssembly, people don't know about the cloud native WebAssembly, but even David was here, and he on his YouTube channel has done various workshops. There has been Wasm IO conference. Civo Navigate hosted a bunch of talks on WebAssembly. WasmCon is happening in Seattle. So I can see the education gap bridging, and there are conferences, there are talks. Many people who are educating on YouTube, they are creating content on server side of WebAssembly, Spain, cloud native WebAssembly. So the education gap is bridging, and so from all these you can calculate that there is something that is about to happen at a very fast pace. Right now it is moving steadily, but the growth is definitely expected in the coming years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. That was eye-opening for sure. Thank you again. Folks, again, we are streaming live from Civo Navigate. My name is Sohan Maheshwar. If you have any questions, and put them in the comments and we'll let our panel answer them. We have assembly experts here. Now we have Ashwin. Ashwin, as a quick introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Ashwin Kumar, an associate program manager at GitHub. That means I don't use Wasm at my work, but I'm pretty clicked by it, and that's what brought me to Civo Navigate. And by the way, this is a very nice conference. I'm enjoying it.
Ashwin, you had a talk at Civo Navigate, which had a little to do with Wasm. Can you tell us a small summary of your talk at the conference?
Yeah. So my talk title is Wasm too soon or too late? A next generation perspective. I'm talking about, I got introduced to Wasm 1 year ago when I attended my first in-person conference, and my friend took me to a Wasm Edge talk. I did not know Wasm back then, and I did not know Edge. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, this is such a nice concept. It is so nice. 1 year later, it took some time to understand Wasm, but it was overwhelming. And 1 year later, I see my juniors like trying it out and still getting overwhelmed. And I'm seeing like, is this a pattern? Are we missing something in Wasm community? What is happening here because of which that gap has not been filled since last year? So I was introduced via conference. I was introduced to Wasm from online enterprise users. So what I did for this talk is I ran the other direction. I just went the other way and I talked to people who don't use Wasm at their work. I talked to a lot of high school kids, a lot of young talent, a lot of new generation folks like, are you using Wasm? How was your experience? What was your first impression on it? And results are quite interesting. It turns out we have a community, but it needs a lot of work so we can make sure that everyone is welcome and takes a look at Wasm. So my talk was around, is it too soon? I mean, Kubernetes was ahead of its time. So we're following that same cycle technology does. Or is it too late that we need to work on the community building of Wasm? Fermium is a great place. I love that this is a really positive start that I feel happy. Like, oh, I tried something cool. Let me tell that to the Fermium folks. And I see other people joining it. It's pretty healthy and it's just the start. And I want to see this happen more often. So these were my 2 cents that I was talking in my talk. And yeah.
That's awesome. Wasm is awesome. But Ashwin, so you do speak to a lot of students and a lot of folks just starting their career, and you said many of them are getting into the WebAssembly space, right? So what are some of the perspectives you hear from this audience when you interact with them?
It's interesting that way they find out WebAssembly is like every other technology they're trying to solve a problem or build a project. On the other hand, they are not doing it out of pressure of boss or manager. So it's like, I just want something to be like better or faster or just do it for fun. It's fine. So they break stuff. And the way they found out is via community discussions, forums, Slack. And when I talk to them, they're like, oh, Wasm is cool. But because it's so hard to find an answer to a particular thing, I just moved on to JavaScript or tried web development. I'm like, all right, so is it because there's no place you can come back to that's causing the issue? Or is it like, you are awesome, you're doing pretty good stuff, but people talk about it? And that gave me a thought like, oh, you're not alone. How can we build a community where all of these folks which are spread across the globe just need a place to come back? And to be honest, the next generation is using Wasm. They're super excited. It's just like how Kubernetes grew on its own. And I'm super excited of what we can do to bring those things that I took off after talking to them.
Amazing, amazing. And last question for you, Ashwin, which I'm asking everyone here as well, which is, how do you see the space evolve, right? You said you got to know about Wasm a year ago. So let's fast forward 1 year, and 2024, at the same time, where do you think the Wasm space will be at?
I think of it as a tool to solve a problem. Once you WebAssembly in that way, like every other technology that is out there, you can see a pattern of cycle. Every technology has to go through it. Kubernetes went through it, where it was very hard to make it public, get that approval. Once it's out there, how do you fix it? How do you make it more stable? And once that is done, there starts the hype train where everyone starts doing, and then it becomes more stable after some time. I think Wasm is going through the same phase, and every technology will go. I want to see how we can learn from the previous technologies which are more mature, learn from their mistakes, and 1 year has happened. So there are conferences which are recognizing the potential of Wasm. We're in a very healthy direction. I want to see if I can contribute in a non-expert way of how I can bring more folks who can contribute or play with Wasm just for fun. It's amazing. It has a lot of potential to change the web, but sometimes, like, I started coding because it's fun, and I would love to have more folks in space who are just here for that.
Well, thanks so much, Ashwin, and please continue that in educating people like that. Thank you so much. All right, folks, we are streaming from Civo Nacigate again. We just had Ashwin, and now we have a Fermion friend, someone who you may and talk yesterday at Civo. I know you worked very hard on the demo, and it was a bit stressful, to say the least, wasn't it?
Like all living on the bench, my problem is, and that's always a good time. Yeah.
So Danielle, first, congrats on the talk. I heard great things about it. Can you tell us a bit about the talk itself?
Yeah, so I was kind of going on a bit of a history lesson, talking about the way we ship software has evolved. So starting from, deploying to physical servers, progressing through like the dawn of virtualization, and how that gave sort of birth to the cloud. And then how we've progressed from there through containerization, and then talking a little bit about the parallels between current functions as a service things and, sort of PaaSes like Heroku and Cloud Foundry and whatever else, and how with WebAssembly, we're trying to sort of learn from both to give you sort of like less responsibility as a developer without building the lock-in problems of the traditional PaaS. And then a demo of, running something locally, having the same developer environment locally in the Fermion cloud and then on Civo Kubernetes. And people seem to like it.
Daniel, where do you really see the Wasm space go towards, right? And of course, it's a hard question to really answer, but you've been working so close, you've been in the space, but also with the bleeding edge, like you said, people who are on that cutting edge of this ecosystem. So what are your thoughts on where it would go towards?
I'm really excited for where we're going with the component model. Specifically around what that can do for security, and then also like data privacy, with the idea of being able to specify what components get access to what data and what components they can talk to. I think having that will do the same for like software security as things like Terraform have done for infrastructure, which is a big statement. But I hope.
both you and Sven discussed mentioned rather the component model for the benefit of people watching who may not be familiar with it. Can you tell us why this potentially could be a big deal, or what it is?
You're asking the wrong person. Like, I want to put my Till hat on. Till is a colleague of ours who is the chair of the Bytecode Alliance. But the component model is effectively a way of composing different WebAssembly modules together with a sort of configuration about what can be passed between them and more things. But yeah.
Okay. All right, you hear it here. You heard it here. The component model. You can pass more things. I think that's the TLDR basically. Okay, last question, Danielle. Yeah. What does Fermyon have in store? What do you have in store for us over the next year or so?
A lot of things. Like, it's a really exciting time. Like, we just started shipping like our first SQL database as a service. And then also, we released yesterday AI inferencing. And a lot of things getting, more adoption informs a lot of those kinds of decisions as we scale. Yeah, like, it's going to be awesome.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. Danielle also helped set up a lot of this audio video that you're seeing. So extra thanks to you, Danielle, for that. Folks, again, we're streaming from Civo Nacigate in London. My name is Sohan Maheshwar. I'm a dev advocate at Fermyon. Apologies if I'm not given shout outs to people who have sent in comments. Some technical problems with iPads and YouTubes and the interwebs. So apologies for that. Last but not least, we have someone you may or may not be familiar with, Matt Butcher, the one and only. He's instructed me not to call him Matthew Butcher, so I won't do that, but I might have just butchered that. So, Matt, you had many talks at Civo Nacigate. Tell us to talk about all of them.
Yeah. Saiyam and I were in a contest to see who could spend the most time on stage, and Saiyam still won. But the two big talks, we did a workshop just kind of covering basics of spin. But the two big talks that I got to do was one about the history of the Helm project. It's been about 8 years since we first started Helm, and that was kind of a fun storytelling session where I went back to what it was like to start a project that was it started as a hackathon project. I won a $75 Amazon gift certificate for Helm, and that was the big payout at the end of the, and that was a fun one to walk through that all the way through where the Helm project is now as sort of a stable graduated project in the CNCF. The other talk I did was on serverless, WebAssembly, and AI inference. The summary of it is I like to define serverless as a particular way of writing an application where you're not writing the server part, the part that's a long running process that stays there listening on a socket for a long period of time, but instead you're writing just a small event handler. So you get a request, you do your thing, you return the response, and then you shut down. And this lends toward a lot of efficiency. We waste a lot of cloud compute, a lot of CPUs that are just sitting there idle in the data center. And one of the things we're passionate about is figuring out how to do that more efficiently. So we talked about serverless, introduced WebAssembly a little bit, and then got to AI inferencing, which is the thing we launched earlier this week. Essentially, what we wanted to do is make it really easy for developers to start immediately using AI inferencing within the code, right inside of these serverless functions. So the APIs are just there. There's no connection strings to manage. You're not calling out to some external REST API and having to parse the data. It's all just right there and very easy to work with. But buried in that AI inferencing is a reference back to what I was talking about serverless, right? Serverless is about being efficient with our compute, not utilizing CPUs for long periods of time, just sitting there idle, but only claiming resources on the system when you actually need them. our view of AI inferencing was that we should be able to do the same thing with really expensive GPUs, right? So Civo is now offering, as Saiyam mentioned, announced yesterday, Civo is now offering AI class GPUs, and Fermyon is using some of those A100 GPUs and running inside of Fermyon Cloud. And serverless functions that are using that inferencing can just start up, run to completion very quickly, and shut back down. So the goal of this is to, bring that same level of CPU efficiency to the GPU world as well. So those are the two talks I've done over the last couple of days.
Amazing. Like you said, 8 years have passed since the Helm launch, and here we are talking about serverless and WebAssembly and AI. We got so many questions about the AI, serverless AI inferencing launch. Many of them were to do with how can I use this in my day-to-day, or how can I use this for my business, or what are some of the use cases? So what are some of the use cases that you are envisioning where programmers and devs can actually use this feature?
Yeah, the easy answer is, well, we've all seen sort of how ChatGPT works, and it's nice to be able to add that kind of AI-powered chat. But what we're kind of envisioning is being able to build things, that fit what you want to do better, right? So, for example, one of the things we've been showing off this week was a program that grabbed all the articles out of a Bartholomew CMS, trained the AI on those. Then using the generated vector graph of that, stored in a Terso database, we could then run through every article and generate a suggested set of links, like 3 most relevant links or something like that, automatically. And these links are highly relevant because this is like an LLM strong point, is looking at text and making decisions based on text. So that was one of the fun things we did. We did an RSS feed aggregator. We did some sentiment analysis where you could take you could feed the LLM a sentence or two and have it come back and say, this is a positive sentence, or this is a negative sentence, or neutral. And then we're just kind of rolling out examples. We recently launched developer.fermyon.com/hub, which is kind of an example hub where you can go and see all kinds of different spin applications. But among those are a bunch of brand new AI inferencing ones. Those are a couple of ideas, but what excites me about this is that, and this happened with Helm too, you put out something there going, I think this is what people want to be able to do. And then people come back and surprise you with their ingenuity and their creativity. And we think LLM is really going to unlock a lot of creativity in the developers.
100% agree, because I was at the booth for most part of yesterday, and people started throwing these amazing use cases they had, and I was like, that's a great idea. I'm totally going to write that down. But yeah, absolutely agree with you, Matt. Matt, final question before we end the stream. I want you to gaze into that crystal ball and talk about the future of WebAssembly, of serverless, of compute, of AI, the grand unified theory of computing maybe. But yeah, thoughts on where all of this will go in the near future.
Sure. And I feel like Saiyam really teed me up for this, because when Saiyam and I and Radu, when we did this tour of India, we went to meetup after meetup. And one of the things that really started to materialize mentally for me was like, we see these kind of innovation cycles happen. And if we look back at them over history, both near in terms of technology and far, and we look at things like how the internet rose to where it is now, right? Where it went from something that only physicists and military knew about to the kind of thing that we literally can't put down. It's in our hand all the time. And we looked at innovations like that and realized that there's kind of this set pattern. There's some early years where the foundations are laying, right? And you have to do just the grunt work of building a new technology. For WebAssembly, those years were 2015 through about 2019, maybe 2020 was under W3. And then, so you get this, it tends to be a fairly flat, right? And then something starts to pull it, a series of innovations that you see that start with that core technology and begin applying it in innovative ways and in new and unique ways. That, I think, is what's been happening for the last maybe 3.5 years, is that we're starting to see technologies. I like to put spin in there, but of course there are a lot of others like Dilibto, which was another one. The fact that now Kubernetes distributions and Docker Desktop are to support executing WebAssembly workloads Civo announced yesterday that Civo Kubernetes can now spin and other WebAssembly applications in the clusters. Those are all key innovations, right? So you start to see things really pick up, and the trajectory gets pulled, kind of more sharply up. And then for whatever reason, there's just this moment where things click into place. And I have looked at so many of these kinds of events. What happened with Rails that pulled it up and to the right? What happened to with the internet that pulled it up and to the right? It's just like some kind of moment happens, and in our maybe collective consciousness or the zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it, it just. And I think we are just rapidly that moment, and then it's just going to pull hard up into the right, and you'll see it grow like Kubernetes grew, like Docker grew, like Ruby on Rails grew, where it just kind of takes off like a rocket. So, I've been calling 2023 the year of WebAssembly, and we're getting close to the end of 2023. Really think it has been. I think when you heard Ashwin talking, he's a powerful force in bringing the idea of WebAssembly to a new generation of software developers that are eager to learn these kinds of things. And he's only been doing this for a year, right? And yet it's the kind of thing where people like Ashwin see the potential for this and say, even if this isn't my day job, I believe in this kind of technology, and I can go out there and start working in it. And that I think is really cool. And that's that's one of those things. I don't know what's behind the actual moment, but that's one of those things that just starts pulling up on that upward trajectory. And I think we're just about there.
Amazing. And honestly, I can't wait. I can't wait to see that inflection point. Well, I think, you heard from the man himself. You heard from Matt. That's it from us. Thank you so much again. We were streaming from Civo Nacigate. We hope to do this again. Again, apologies if we didn't get to your comments, technical issues, but we will be streaming later in the day from WasmCon, I think, WasmCon in Seattle. So we will be streaming from there again. And so try and get to that stream too. And from all of us here, goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.
You didn't sing the outro.